Hello everyone. My name is Qingfeng Liu from Shanghai Jiaotong University, and it is my honor to be here to talk about my research with the title of Multi-phase modeling of multi-species transport in concrete. I know the topic is a bit different from the other presenters here, but it's actually the closest one to this session topic from my work. Based on the advantages of injecting lithium ions into concrete to suppress ASR, my topic would be more focused on our modeling work for transport, for the electrochemical rehabilitation, firstly for the chloride-induced problem, and secondly the alkali silica reaction. So from the information about the topic, we can simply divide this presentation into two parts. Firstly, an introduction about double multimodals, which is short for the multi-phase modeling of multi-species transport in concrete. So secondly, some typical studies by using this model step by step, including the one mentioned in the paper title, of course. So firstly, let's say something about the background of the modeling work. As we know, the chloride-induced corrosion problem has become the one of the biggest challenges for concrete industry. So particularly for the structures which close to or next to the marine environment. So the problem is, what is the mechanism of ionic transport, what's the surveillance life of concrete structure, when and how to repair the corroded concrete. To answer these questions, it is very important to develop a multi-species transport model in concrete. So regarding the ionic transport models, the existing models can be listed as four groups: single-phase, single-species, single-phase multi-species, multi-phase single-species, and the last one, multi-phases and multi-species. So for the last group, which was also the knowledge gap, I just called it double multimodal. So there are two key words of multi here. So the first one, multi-phase. I guess people may be very familiar with this kind of model recent years. Nothing special. For example, this slide shows a set of multi-phase concrete model we built, in which for example, this one, all the circular area stands for the aggregates, the tiny shell wrapping each aggregate, it is interfacial transition zone, and the rest part is motor. So note that all the aggregates here are randomly generated by using a MATLAB program under the Fuller gradation. So by using these models from the mechanical point of view, if the properties of individual materials involved in concrete are known, then the properties of concrete mixture should be predictable. So above shows the first word, multi. So let's come to the second one, multi-species. Why we need to consider multi-species? It actually, in a sense, is due to the non-relatives of multi-species transport. So just have a look at how nonlinear the governing equation is. See, the bonding term is nonlinear, the potential term is nonlinear, and if you're happy, the divisibility term could also be nonlinear. So for now, I guess you can understand why most of our models shown before are two-dimensional. So just because of this, it's really hard to get a convergent solution from a 3D model. So anyway, here I think the most important nonlinear term is this one, the electrocentric potential. So because this kind of it is the term to determine the electrocoupling among different species of ions in concrete, which affects the chloride transport quite a lot. However, for this kind of study, people tend to use the assumption of electroneutrality condition to determine the potential in medium. But our work found that this assumption cannot realize the true electrocoupling between different species, which makes the prediction quite questionable. So this assumption should be taken place by the true electrochemistry law, the Gauss law, with the form of Poisson equation. Although the Poisson equation makes the issue even highly nonlinear, since for now the potential term here is not only depends on the boundary conditions, but also the changing concentration of all kinds of ionic species involved in the medium. So anyway, with the help of multi-consideration and Poisson equation, we could fulfill the knowledge gap of multi-phase, multi-space model for concrete, so-called double multi-model. So by using this double multi-model, we can solve a set of mechanism problem along the lines of concrete durability study. So the next, I select 4 typical studies have been done to show you a whole story about the modeling work shown in our conference paper. I will firstly quickly go through the first 3, and I will stop if I found something interesting or something questionable of each study. So for the first one, we aimed to review the electrocoupling between different species. From the migration wavefronts of the 4 ionic species, you may find that the ions with the same type of charge have the same migration rate, although their diffusivities and the initial concentrations are dramatically different. So this phenomenon cannot be found if people only use single species model or the multi-species model, but controlled by the electroneutrality, and it will of course provide more accurate prediction. So the second work exactly linked to solve this problem by considering the interfacial transition zones in geometry and the ionic bonding in the governing equations. So the results show that the influence caused by the interfacial transition zones and ionic bonding are all more or less to the same extent. So it may tell people that if you want to consider the ITZ or bonding effect, you'd better consider both of them, or the results could be even worse than you consider none of them. So after about 2 studies on transport phenomena, we start to use this model to simulate the ECR treatment, the repair method for the concrete structure about to suffer or already suffering from the chloride attack. In this study, the most interesting finding in my eyes is that the presence of aggregates cause 2 opposite effects on ESR. On one hand, it decelerates ESR due to the increase of concrete tutorosity, and on the other hand, it accelerates ESR due to the increase of current density. But interestingly, regarding the total chloride eroded by ESR, these 2 opposite effects can be more or less cancelled each other. So considering the most of issues mentioned in the above studies, multi-species coupling, interference transition zone, bonding effect, and ECR, we came to this work, which is exactly the one mentioned in the paper title. So knowing that the ECR treatment may cause alkali silica reaction due to rising the pH near the cathode, in this study, the electrochemical rehabilitation method is further developed to mitigate both the ASR-induced cracks and the chloride-induced corrosion by electrochemical lithium migration and electrochemical chloride removal. So this is because the lithium source can alter the ASR products by producing non-expansive gel or hindering the formation of the alkali silica gel. So here are the boundary and the parameter settings about the simulated ER treatment. And after the measuring and benchmarking with the in the work in 2013. And after measuring and benchmarking, we obtained the concentration distribution file for all species at any time, at any location. This figure shows that each kind of ions has their unique performance. For example, the potassium and sodium ions, they are gradually gathered around the rebar, which will raise the pH value around the rebar to protect passive film. So for lithium ions, the concentration and the penetration depth increase with the treatment time, which is good for controlling ASR. And for the two negative charged species, they have totally different performance. The concentration of chloride gradually decreases in whole specimen. However, the hydroxide is gathered around the rebar. This is due to the reactions taking place at the steel cathode, which provides another flux for hydroxide. So the next, we also conducted some sensitive analysis for the current density and the concentration of lithium solution at anode. We found that the amounts of injected lithiums and removed chlorides both increase with applied current density, and the higher boundary of concentration brings positive effect to lithium ingression, but a negative effect to chloride removal. So, and also the effect of increasing lithium concentration is larger than that of increasing the current density. But this doesn't mean that the process is dominated by diffusion, just because the external applied electric field can play a better role with more lithium is provided. So for the temperature effect, we found that the higher lithium concentration, the larger positive effect caused by the increasing the current density and the temperature, but also larger negative effect to chloride removal. We also found that the positive effect caused by higher temperature slightly decrease when the current density is increased. So this result tells people that for current density, lithium concentration, and the temperature, these three parameters should be determined carefully to balance and optimize both lithium injection and chloride removal to mitigate both the alkali silica induced cracking problem and also the chloride induced corrosion problem. So all in all, although we have made a big progress by using this model, it should be mentioned that there are still quite a lot of limitations. So next, we are trying to extend the current model to a more broadened form to handle more complicated conditions. This is exactly what we want to do in the future. So here are some relevant publications. You can see from further details if you are interested. Not only the studies shown today, but also some other studies from the relative area by using this transport model. So okay, in brief, thank you very much for your kind attention, and looking forward to hearing from you colleagues, and just feel free to contact me. So thank you very much.